with Keyshawn Johnson, Charlie all know in for Stephen A, Max, and Molly on First Take. Man, we got so many things to talk about. You got Chris Paul on his way to the NBA Finals for the first time in his legacy career, although he did not need to add to his legacy as far as I'm concerned. We're definitely going to dive into that. The Milwaukee Bucks, no Giannis in Game 5. Does that mean they have no chance of beating the Atlanta Hawks and get to the NBA Finals themselves? We're definitely going to dive into that. And college players about to have the best part-time jobs ever in the history of part-time jobs. Me, Keyshawn, and Charlie, First Take starts now.
We come together even more so in these moments. This team is made up of toughness.
We have to realize we're trying to close out a series. We have to do whatever it takes.
Chris Paul once again from downtown. Booker uses the screen beautifully and flushes.
This is the deal. We don't give up.
Paul step back three-pointer, puts it in, and the foul.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good.
Damn good. I like it. Chris Paul feeling himself after that win. The drought is now over, well, at least for one team. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. I'm Charlie Arnold, joined here in studio by Keyshawn Johnson. We also got Freddie Coleman joining us from Bristol. And how you guys doing this morning? What a game last night.
Good, not bad. I mean, it was a great game, I would say. Chris Paul dropping 41 buckets on him, but at the same time, making sure that the young guns was cooking. I mean, you got to, it was, put it this way. Mm-hmm. I loved everything about it except Chris Paul's poster. And here's why I would say the post game I didn't like. You want to know why, Freddie?
Why?
Because I needed him to cry.
No,
Give me the tears and the snot.
The man has cried for 16 years.
But I needed him to really squeeze them tears out for me because I'm so damn happy for him.
Well, I'm so damn happy that me and you were coordinated this morning. Look at this. Looking good here in studio. Freddie, wish you were here. But, guys, let's get to the game because after 16 years, Chris Paul finally in the NBA Finals. A stellar game, 6 performance by the Suns. CP3 on fire, dropping 41 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in the 130-103 win over the Clips. The 36-year-old guard was rolling in the third quarter, hitting 3 3-pointers, going on an 8-0 run to close it out by himself. And as I said, CP3 definitely feeling himself after that performance.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good. Been a lot of work, man. A lot of work. Going to a new team. Everybody staying the course. That team fight hard. T. Lue, unbelievable coach. Chauncey Billups, my big brother. So many ties to that team. But damn, this feels good.
What kind of mission were you on?
Don't lose. Don't lose mission. You know what I'm saying? Damn, that feel good. I wish my son and my family come down here. I don't know, man. It's just a lot of emotions, a lot of injuries. I was getting an MRI yesterday on my wrist. A lot of shit going on. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I just want to get over there with my team, Rach. Respect. Appreciate you.
He was done with that interview. Keyshawn, what did Chris Paul's performance prove?
Well, first of all, his leadership, right? He comes over from OKC, and you didn't really know. You're like, okay, the Suns were 8-0 in the bubble. What leadership could he bring? And then you look up, and they study just chipping along as the season goes. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, this team is for real. So you now have to push out everything and all the doubt in your mind out the way. And now he's a little bit older. So you're like, well, can Chris Paul do some things? Now playoff time comes. He hurts his shoulder. That becomes problematic. He stays in the game. They knock down the Lakers. They take care of business against the Lakers. And then they move forward. And now you look up and he's in the finals. When you talk about Chris Paul, you can't talk about him without saying, but he has yet to get to a final. Now you can. And now the conversation is, can he win a final to go along with everything else that he's done as in his NBA career? He's been nothing but a leader, whether it's on or off the court. And so you can tell based on the 2 games he missed that he led this team prior to missing those 2 games because they took whatever little bit that he gave them and applied it to be able to go up 2-0. And when they went up 2-0 and he came back in that first game and things was a little bit slow and people was questioning whether or not it was the right mix and chemistry at that point in time. And now you can see why he got back on the floor, dropping 41 points on their head and getting out of there against the team that he used to play for. So I'm sure it was bittersweet, but he still got to give me them tears.
Well, he's not going to
Man.
cry. He's a damn good number one, Keyshawn. So you may want those tears, my brother, but you're not going to get them with all 123 postseason games he finally gets to the NBA Finals. Two things. Number one, State Farm premiums are going to go up because of what Chris Paul's able to do, getting his team to the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. So that's number one. But number two, his legacy didn't need to be proved anything to me, and here's why. Chris Paul's always been that kind of guy that people have always said, okay, does he have too much of an edge? Is he too much of a leader? Does he have too much of the basketball? Does he hog it the whole 9 yards? I'm thinking, well, you're one of the greatest point guards of all time. Things are going to be a lot better when the ball is going to be in his hands. And what did he do? He closed out the Denver Nuggets by closing out in that series by winning 4 in a row against that team. And then when they had to have it last night, it's one thing to have 41. You put a 41 burger against the Clippers, but you go 7 of 8 from the three-point line. You also have no turnovers in 35 minutes of action when you control everything. They tried everything possible to stop you. And I can't even imagine, Charlie and Keyshawn, what the narrative would have sounded like if they did not win this series, because I firmly believe if they did not win Game 6 last night, I could see the Phoenix Suns losing in 7 because that pressure would have been immense. I don't know if they've been able to handle it very well. And for the first time, the Clippers would not have to worry about pressure being on them when it comes to a playoff series because everybody was waiting for that team to clip, and they didn't do it. They fought hard. So for me, his performance doesn't have to prove anything to me. He's been a top 5 point guard on my list all time in the history of the NBA. But I'm glad that he was able to get through and break through, Key and Charlie, because if he didn't, if they had lost a 3-1 lead to his former team, I can't even imagine what that narrative would have sounded like next to people saying, yep, that's why Chris Paul can never do it. He was never able to do it because he had a 3-1 lead with a team better than the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, and they were not able to get the NBA Finals with everything on their side in this series.
Well, you should never worry about the narrative as a professional player because everybody's got something to say. I think his body of work speaks for itself. There's no question about it. That's one of the reasons Chris Paul said, don't even talk to me about 3-1 because we have business to finish. And so when you look at it, he was able to deliver the goods in the brightest moments. Go to a few games.
The sunniest moments, if you will.
Or the sunniest moments, if that's a good one there, Charlie. If you look at it, though, the big-time players in situations, not all finished the deal. But when Kevin Durant's back was against the wall, he basically came out when he was the Lone Ranger and dropped 40-plus on their head, in Milwaukee's head. When you think about Paul George, everybody was talking negative about him. PG didn't have Kawhi. He came out and did his work and dropped 40. I mean, when we start to look at that sort of thing with veteran players that know what it will take to get things done, Chris Paul did it again last night. Okay, down the stretch, the Clippers closed the gap, I think, to about 7 points. He turned on the gas. He had 14 of the 16 points in that stretch. That shows you leadership. He look what he did for DeAndre Ayton since coming over from OKC. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Ayton gave him credit about him being able to get him to play a certain way. So it's like this is more to me than just basketball legacy on and off the court. You made a joke about State Farm. That's important. Those little bitty things are so important in professional sports. What are you on and off the court? What are you in your community? And he's been nothing but the best.
Keyshawn, I'll echo this standpoint, what you had to say from when it comes to Chris Paul this way. I think people seem to forget how many times he's had those clutch kind of moments when he played the Houston Rockets. They didn't get the NBA Finals, and everybody pointed the finger at him saying it was your fault. And everybody was saying, well, wait a minute. The reason that you were even in competition with Golden State was when Chris Paul was going off, they couldn't guard him. They had a hard time guarding him. And then when he got injured, they weren't the same basketball team. But they blamed him for that. When things didn't go well with the Clippers, he was there for 6 years. When things went haywire at the end, plenty of people pointed the finger at him thinking, well, the reason you were competitive and people even talking about you in that way was because of what Chris Paul brought to the table. People forgot about that, or they wanted to forget about that because there are plenty of people out there that did not want to see Chris Paul ever get to the NBA Finals. Even last night, when he made Patrick Beverley give him the two-hand shove because Patrick Beverley pulled that punk move because he was so frustrated that Chris Paul gave him that business. He gave him that church in the fourth quarter, and there was nothing that Patrick Beverley could do about it, and he had no other recourse but to get in touch with his inner bouncer at the end of the night, throwing people out of the club because Chris Paul's putting it on him. So Chris Paul's able to do that to Patrick Beverley because so many people did not want Chris Paul to get to the NBA Finals. They wanted to have that conversation. Yeah, great point guard, great player, can never get it done in key moments. He had done that before. It shouldn't have taken last night for people to remember how many clutch moments Chris Paul's had in his NBA career, even though this performance finally put him over the top in terms of getting the NBA Finals for the first time in his Hall of Fame career.
I wonder what he said to Patrick
I didn't
Beverley.
look like he said anything. I think Patrick Beverley was just salty.
No, he said something. He said something. I'm gonna ask CP3 when I see him.
Yeah,
what
please.
did you say?
Please ask.
You know what it is? He says something that when you say you're at a barbecue and it's a relative you don't like and you mention something, then they throw potato salad at you. That was along those lines from Chris Paul. He said something that Patrick Beverley did not want to get past because he was right. Chris Paul threw facts in his face and Patrick Beverley couldn't handle it.
Well, look, Chris Paul is unbothered at this point because right now the Suns are the first team in history to miss the postseason for the past 10 seasons and then make the NBA Finals. And not only that, but of course, this is Chris Paul's first Finals appearance in his career. But the drought does continue for the Clippers and now stands at 51 years of missing the NBA Finals. So, Freddie, what is the key for the Clippers title run next season?
Well, Keyshawn will tell you more than ever before, Charlie and Keyshawn, it's a second-to-second year when it comes to NBA championships and opportunity windows. It's no longer year-to-year, game-to-game, it's second-to-second. But if you're going to be the Clippers, it's not so much about Kawhi Leonard coming back. That's key. But I think the most important thing for them to be a championship team or contend next year is Ty Lue, their head coach. Guys want to play for that guy. Guys understand that he's always going to have their back. And yes, you need talent. But he has shown the ability not only to coach talented players, but coach players up. What Monty Williams was able to do in Phoenix, look what Ty Lue did for Reggie Jackson. Look what he did for Marcus Morris. Even Boogie Cousins was getting running. He played well in the last couple of games for the Los Angeles Clippers. They don't do this, in my opinion, if Doc Rivers is still the head coach. That's not trying to slight Doc Rivers. It's just that certain guys have a better feel for a certain team and a certain way to coach players, especially with that organization. And yeah, you can't miss Kawhi Leonard and say, yeah, we're going to miss the 30 points or 57% that he shot from each game. Yeah, those things are going to happen. We're going to miss that. But they were that close to scaring the Phoenix Suns and maybe getting the NBA Finals. To me, that's the most important key. Because if you're the Clippers, you want to make sure that this opportunity is there, and you got to grab and hold on to it like your owner Steve Ballmer did to his friend's legs last night in that ball game. You got to do the same thing if you're the Clippers. And if you're going to do that, you have the right coach in Ty Lue, that guys like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, and even though Patrick Beverley had that move, they want to go through a wall for that guy. To me, that's the most important aspect if the Clippers are going to do this again next year, when each and every year it's a second-by-second situation when it comes to competing and winning championships, no matter what sport it is.
They got to run it back. They got to run it back with Ty Lue, Kawhi Leonard, PG. Maybe there's some tweaks along the lines of a couple role type